It's August 7th, 2023, and it feels to me like the looming housing storm has been off in the distance for like 2 years now, maybe even 3. When COVID first hit, every real estate professional that I knew went, okay, the market is going to crash because demand is going to totally dry up because no one is going to be interested in showing their house to have people come in and look, and nobody's going to be interested in going into strangers' houses. But the market in certain areas went up 40% over 2 years because of macro factors that no one could have predicted was going to happen. PPP money from the government flooding the markets, everybody getting stimulus, trillions of dollars, trillions and trillions being pumped into the market. The monetization of single-family homes at a huge scale where hedge funds were coming in and were buying entire neighborhoods up. No one had ever seen that happen in history, and no one predicted it. What it feels like now is that we're in this kind of post-COVID hangover period where the Fed is trying to suck all this money back out of the economy because one of the worst things for a currency started to occur, which is inflation. Inflation is bad because it affects everybody, and it attacks the foundation of what makes a global reserve currency, which is trust that that currency is stable. They have been fighting it, and inflation has been coming down. Maybe, we think, maybe they're lying. But one thing is certain. No one can properly predict the future because there are too many macro factors, too many global factors that can affect what's going on, even with housing in the United States. For instance, Japan just decided to cease yield curve control, which then all of a sudden starts affecting the bond market in the United States. And the bond market directly affects 30-year interest rates. So it's this big like, wait, what? They did? And then now That's why so many economists and YouTubers that are positive about what is going to happen will more than likely be incorrect. And then after everything has happened, the media will go find someone who correctly predicted it because they were able to tie 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 7 to 12 to 15 to 18, and 18 happened. And somehow magically they're geniuses because they saw something coming that nobody else did. When the reality was when you have 1,000 people commentating on something, somebody's going to be right. Somebody's going to be right with the time and the destination. The question is, were they right because they were actually looking at the right metrics, or were they right because they just got lucky? Maybe I'm cynical. I certainly feel like I sound cynical right now. But the reality is, I'm tired of feeling like we're constantly in a market that is terrible for either buyers or sellers. We can handle 7.5% interest rates. We can handle it. That's not a problem. Unless we had 2.5% interest rates for a decade that drove housing prices up to all new highs. Now is the least affordable time to buy a house in the United States because over the last 10 years, housing prices were allowed to climb and climb and climb because the Fed kept rates so low, unbelievably low. Asset prices just went nuts. And at the same time, the Fed is printing trillions of dollars. So they're pumping more money into the system, essentially throwing gas on the fire, allowing this economy to just grow into this monster that then when they try to contain the monster, when they try to shackle the thing and bring it back down to heel by raising interest rates, what you have is this massive punishment to the next generation that is coming up because the affordability of houses is now absolutely devastated. What we're seeing right now is we're not seeing markets melt the way most people thought they would. And the reason is because a lot of sellers looked at this and they went, I'm not moving into a place where I've got to go get a 7.25% mortgage. I've got a 2.875 on mine right now, or a 3.25 or a 3.5. I'm not going to trade that up for something else. I'm going to just wait this out. So right now, everyone is holding their breath. There is almost no inventory on the market. In specific neighborhoods in Nashville that we do work in, there's 6 weeks of inventory. So even though I don't want to make predictions, I like to talk through scenarios. what if this happens? Because if this happens, then this happens. So the biggest constraint right now is the Fed raising interest rates. So if the Fed holds rates high, that directly, I mean, it's indirectly, but it directly affects the 30-year mortgage. If the Fed holds rates high for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and there's no major crash that happens because of something else, because it doesn't look like it will be in housing, this outside factor that's not going to be housing would then basically tell the Fed, we can't keep rates this high anymore. We have to start lowering them down because otherwise it's going to spread. There's going to be contagion. We're going to go into recession or depression. And they start to lower those rates. It's at that point that the monster that they created will come back to life. Because if you drop rates from 7.25 to 6 to 5 to 4, and housing has already been allowed to creep up this far, and you've only melted the housing market down for 3 years, 4% a year, just people holding on. I'm not moving. 4% down the first year. I'm not moving. 4% down the second year. I'm not moving. 4% down the third year. And people are looking at the values of their homes and they're going, man, I used to be able to sell my house for $500,000, but neighbor Bob over here just sold his for $450,000. So I guess that's what the prices are. If you've never owned a home, I imagine you want that meltdown to happen. Except you probably want 15% a year. You want 15 and then another 15 and then maybe even another 15 if you're greedy. But to get prices drop back down 30% would be devastating to the housing market in general. Devastating. So the melt can only happen incrementally. And that's what we're seeing because inventory is staying so restricted. So let's do an example. Let's say you've got that $500,000 home at 7.25% right now, and I'll throw some numbers up on the screen. The monthly payment's about $3,400. The total payment over time for that loan is $1.25 million estimate. Let's say the Fed melts the market, and it melts it down so that $500,000 home is $450,000 before it adjusts rates, and it only adjusts down to where that monthly mortgage is 6%. So we're just going from 7.25 down to 6. But because the Fed has melted it down, melted the market slowly, we're at $450,000 home value. Instead of a $3,400 a month payment, you've got a $2,700 a month payment, which still seems crazy high. But at the end of the day, if you were to pay that mortgage all the way off, that home is a $970,000 payoff value, not a 1.25 plus. So that's a massive savings over time by the Fed just bringing rates from 7.25 down to 6. So let's say the Fed melts it down further. Let's say there's a 20% market decline in that $500,000 home. Your monthly payment, remember at 7.25 was this, at 6 was this, at 5 on that home that now is $400,000. So the Fed has melted everything down 20%. Your monthly payment's about $2,100. And over time, you're paying $775,000-ish total price for the home. So even though the rate's not dropped in half, when you extrapolate that out, it is a massive savings over time. So this is one of the things that frustrates me about realtors saying, just buy the house. Just buy the house. Date the rate. Marry the house. Because if you do the math, if you actually do the math, if the Fed melts the market down, and that's the if, because there's no guarantee that that happens. If they melt it down 10%, look at the savings every month and look at the savings over time. And if they melt it down 20%, and that's market dependent, obviously, because I think there's going to be some markets where they melt it down further. Let's say I think it's going to take 2 years. So I'm just going to rent for those 2 years, and I'm going to just wait for those housing prices to drop. But I don't want to do that because then I've just thrown away 2 years worth of rent money. Okay, so go look at an amortization schedule and see how much you spent on buying your principal down for the first 2 years of your mortgage. It's like nothing. It's almost nothing. I'll show it up on the screen for the different scenarios. I'm not saying that eternally renting is the right plan, but I'm saying if you believe that the Fed is going to continue to hold rates high and they're going to continue to melt the market down, then you should wait. And here's why this is important. Because you can be ready. Like you can be ready to snatch something if you want to, like get your credit good, get pre-approved with a bank, and then just keep that pre-approval rolling so that if rates start coming back down, when the Fed releases that pressure on housing, you're one of the first people through the door, like first 30 days, first 60 days. So how do you invest at a time like this? And the one answer is you must go fast, or you must get smoking good deals. If you get smoking good deals, then it doesn't really matter. Like you can take a year, you can mess around with the rehab, you can do whatever you want. You're going to waste some time and you're going to waste some money. But at the end of the day, even if housing melts down 10% in a year, which 10% in a year is a lot, but even if it melts down 10%, you take 10% off the back end. Let's say you've got a great deal, so you're still going to make 30% of that gross number at the end. That's still a nice payday. The factors that you can control when you're making your decisions on doing a flip are what type of rehab you're willing to do. If you stay with paint and carpets, light, easy rehabs, you can do those faster, which gives you more control because the market most likely is not going to be melting down 10% in the next 90 days. If it does, we're in big trouble. Another reason doing the paint and carpets makes more sense now than it has in a long time is you're controlling your costs through understanding the simplicity of the rehab. It's maybe 5 tasks rather than doing a gut to the studs, which is 150 tasks. So controlling those 5 tasks, we're going to remove the carpet, we're going to put in new carpet or LVP, we're going to repaint the unit, we're going to clean the unit, and then we're going to list it for sale. That's it. That's way easier and way safer than doing this mighty giant gut to the studs rehab. So speed and control seem to me right now to be the most important things when there is just this perception of an economic storm clouds that are in the distance that are rolling in. And I haven't watched anybody who disagrees with that. Everyone feels like there is something coming. Some people feel like there's something already here and we're just not being told the truth about it. But regardless, in times of turmoil, the key is speed and control. If you can make a really nice house that's at the market value, there are still buyers for sure. The houses that are sitting are the houses that are a little overpriced for the amount of work that they need because people want equity at the end of the day. If they're going to have to go do work to update a house, they want to have some equity. So you going in and doing a rehab, it makes a lot of sense that if you do a nice job, your house is going to be top of the heap and your house is going to sell. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to do a rehab that takes you a year because we have no idea what's coming. I think I'm beating a dead horse. The bottom line is think for yourself. No one knows. No one. Because there's too many outside factors. So you decide how you want to manage you. Pay attention to your local market. Stay focused on your local market. Learn about your market. Talk to people in your market. Thanks for watching. I'm Brandon McDonald with the Nashville Money Guys.